Hello everyone, this is Laurren Darr with Left Paw Press, and I am coming to you live this evening here on Facebook, and we are planning on doing an overview of what is going to happen in 2017 for Left Paw Press. We have a lot of books planned this year. And I have some of the covers for some of them, and I am lining those up here on my screen so that you can see them. And I'm going to go through the list and through the different genres of the books that we're going to do. And I'll separate them by coloring books. I'll separate them by the racing books that we're going to have this year. Of course, pet fashion books. And the marketing / pet business planning book that we do every year also. And it looks like we had a little bit of a technical glitch a little bit earlier, but it looks like that's been resolved. So thank goodness. This is something new because I've not done this while sharing my desktop before, and so this is something new. So anyway, onward. We are going to have at least 24 books that we present in the next year in 2017. So there is definitely a full plate here at Left Paw Press headquarters. We had a record number last year. We actually produced like 22 books and technically released them and published 20 of those. And so this year, a couple of those will be overlapping from last year because we're going to formally introduce those this year. And then we have all new other books that we're going to introduce this year also. So let me get on with it. So what you see on the screen here is one of the books that we're going to introduce this year. And that is the UnicornDala Coloring Book. And this is one of many coloring books. A lot of you are familiar with the Dala Coloring Book series, and this is the next in the series. A lot of folks have asked us to, once we introduced the PugDala Coloring Book at the very end of 2015, they said, hey, can you do it on this other idea or this other pet? And so voila, here you have it. There were several that were introduced last year, and you can look those up on Amazon. So this year we have the UnicornDala. Then after the UnicornDala is released, we're going to have this book, which is a little bit different, but you know, by special request, and we're happy to accommodate people. We're going to introduce the UnicornDala Coloring Book, and that'll come out probably in around the February time frame, and UnicornDala will come out in the January time frame. Later on in the spring, we have a couple books that we're going to introduce, and this one is the Pet Fashion Coloring and Activity Book. This and the UnicornDala Coloring Book are actually currently available on Amazon at this point in time, but like I said, we hadn't formally introduced those. So it's going to get its formal introduction here soon. So look for releases on that. And then another one that I don't have the cover shot of, but we're currently working on, is FerretDala. So all of you ferret lovers out there are going to get a FerretDala Coloring Book in the mix this year. And that does it mainly for the Dala coloring books, that I can talk about at this point in time. And what I would love is if you would comment on this video and let us know. We've had such wonderful and great feedback from so many people about the coloring books, the Dala coloring books, and what people would like to see next. So keep us posted and keep those suggestions coming, and feel free to even comment on this video what type of Dala coloring book that you would like to see Left Paw Press produce next. There's been a lot in that series, like PugDala, DogDala, CatDala, FarmDala, HorseDala. I know I'm forgetting some because we had quite a few last year. Okay, so now I'm going to cover the racing books that we're going to plan for this year. Many of you know that Zachary Tinkle had a book come out in 2015, and it was Zachary Tinkle's MiniCup Decision. And that was about how he had to go through this process of moving and making the decision of going from go-karting into the MiniCup stock cars, because it was more in alignment with his dream of racing in stock cars. And it's a great little book that's got a lot of insights in it, and it's a great book for teaching some lessons to kids also. So he's written another book, and we'll be introducing that probably in February. I think the last week in February is when we have it slated. And that book is going to be called Zachary Tinkle's MiniCup Rookie of the Year Dream. So this is a follow-up, and it dovetails right on the tail end of that previous story. The previous story kind of ended with him just getting ready to start out in the MiniCups. And this story in particular picks up with his very first season and all of the trials and the tribulations. Believe me, there were a lot of them. And they couldn't all fit in the book. It'd be hundreds of pages long, going through all of those things, but still, just keeping your faith and sticking to the plan, showing up to live your dream, and becoming Rookie of the Year. And that's his Rookie of the Year Dream book that will be coming out also. And yes, most people know that Zachary Tinkle is my son, and I'm very proud of him. He's done such an excellent job with his life and career, and he's doing some really great things. This year will be his last year racing the MiniCups. 2016, he won the Rockford Speedway Championship, and in 2017, he's going to compete for just one championship, and also is training to go into a late model, which is a few steps before going into a NASCAR car. So following up to that, on his father's side of the family, some folks may or may not know that Zachary actually has some racing heritage in his dad. It's Zachary's great-great-grandfather and my husband Brad's great-grandfather, who his name is Harry McQuinn, and he's got a very interesting story. And from a historical perspective, Brad has been working for at least 3 or 4 years now on putting together this biographical book on Harry McQuinn himself. And so that will be one of the books that gets finally, we're hoping to go to press with it in August of this year, and release it in August of this year, because it's really an interesting history. He's in the National Midget Hall of Fame. He raced in the Indianapolis 500. I believe that 7th was his best finish. He was a USAC an official there. He went on to become the chief steward at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But there are a couple really, really historical, interesting stories around Harry McQuinn, including one that was a contributing factor to the launch of NASCAR. And the other story was a publicity stunt, and the only time that there's been an airplane landed on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So that's going to be really interesting to have come out in the next year. And those are the 2 racing books that at present time that we plan on introducing. So moving on, we're going to also have, like we normally do each year, let me move this out of the way, our pet fashion books. And I don't have a cover for the Pet Fashion Business Planning Almanack, but we've done that for 4 years. Thankfully, Ellen Zucker, my co-author on that, has agreed that we will do that the next version. So this will be our 5th year together doing the Pet Business Planning Almanac. And so we'll release the 2018 version this year, probably in the October timeframe. I think around the 3rd week of October is when we're slated to release the Pet Business Planning Almanac this year. But so that's a great marketing tool. It's good for the pet industry and even for those that aren't in the pet industry, because it includes the unconventional holidays, traditional holidays, the pet holidays, which people love. It has events and organizations and media, lots of marketing articles. Of course, it includes Ellen's astrological viewpoint on how to plan for your business and your marketing that year. And for those who are wondering, like, why is it structured the way that it is? The Pet Business Planning Almanac came from an idea. I was in a class and we were talking about all of the different resources that would be good to go and look up and find, and to study the pet industry if you're wanting to break into the pet industry, or even market yourself in the pet industry. And I found that there really wasn't one place that had all of that information. And it popped in my head that Ben Franklin did these really cool things called the Farmer's Almanac. And so it's extremely loosely based on the Farmer's Almanac. And so that's the reason for the name. And then one of the things that Ben Franklin always included in the Farmer's Almanac were the moon phases. And so I thought, oh, really cool. Farmers, go by the moon phases to plan their crops and when they should plant and harvest and all of those kinds of things. Wouldn't it be neat to include something from an astrological perspective? And so that is the reason that I contacted my friend Ellen Zucker and said, hey, is this something that you would be even remotely interested in doing? And luckily, Ellen was so gracious and agreed. So now we're going to go into our 5th year of doing the Pet Business Planning Almanac. And I can't wait to see what the next year brings. So, other pet fashion related books that we're going to introduce. This next thing that I'm going to talk about, there's going to be an entire encyclopedia set. So the hardcover encyclopedia set is the Dog Breeds Pet Fashion Illustration Encyclopedia. And I'll go through all of the different volumes, but basically we've been working on this for years. Florina Boldy, who is our fashion illustrator for International Association of Pet Fashion Professionals, has taken so much time to go through all of the breeds, at least the U.S. breeds. I'll temper it with that. And she has illustrated them in what would be, I would call, the 2 traditional fashion poses. So if you are a designer and you're envisioning what you want your piece to look like and you need to draw that out, and you have a certain breed in mind that piece is made for, you need to have that breed illustrated in one of these 2 poses so it shows the piece best. Well, if you go online and you try to look for something as a muse to sketch from, it's really very difficult to find that in all of the breeds. And so Florina painstakingly for the past few years has worked with me to put this together. And we're going to separate all of the breeds by the different groups that they're in. In addition to the breeds and the illustrations that are in the book, there will also be design considerations to think about for those specific breeds, because I've interviewed hours and hours. I've interviewed Darlene Willington, and she is an expert on different dog breeds. She judges dog shows and things like that down in Oklahoma. Wonderful person. And she was kind enough to let me interview her so that I could, ask her about their coat thickness, their leg length, activity level, all sorts of different things that are going to go into the part on what are the design considerations when you're designing for this breed in particular. It also has different little graphics in there that will show like the coat thickness level or the activity level and those types of things. So it will make it a lot easier for a designer when it comes time to illustrate and design and create their pieces, especially when you're at that stage of just, drawing things out and thinking about even an entire line at one particular point in time. So let's go through these. Volume 1 is going to be the toy breeds. And then in addition to that, we also have companion books that are going to go with each of these. So in total, there's going to be a 7-volume hardcover set that's all in color. And that's going to be the dog breeds, the design considerations, etc., that I just talked about. In addition to that, we'll have just some black and white illustrations in coloring book format. And so you'll have these companion coloring books available to you also that will be the dog breeds pet fashion illustration coloring companion books, and they'll match. So the toy breeds will be in one coloring book, and the design, the encyclopedia set itself will be in another. Volume 2 is going to be the non-sporting breeds book, and in addition to that, we will also have the companion coloring book for the non-sporting breeds in the Dog Breeds Pet Fashion illustration set. We'll have the terrier breeds as volume 3. And so we're going to introduce these a little bit later in the year so that they're all out before November, but they will come out a set at a time. So if you get the Dog Breeds Pet Fashion Illustration Encyclopedia and you think, oh, I'd really like to work on my colorization techniques, it's a good idea to also get the coloring book companion to go with that, so that you can not only practice the illustrating, but you can also practice the colorizing with the coloring book also. So then we'll have volume 4, which is going to be the Hound breeds. And all of the Hound dogs are included in that as of the end of 2016. So I know that the AKC sometimes adds additional breeds, and so we do have them all the way through 2016 at this point in time. Volume 4 also has the coloring book companion book for the Hound breeds, and like I said, the coloring books only have those black and white illustrations so that you can practice your colorization techniques. They're blank on one side, so they do not contain all of the information of the encyclopedia set, the things that you need to think about for the design considerations and so on and so forth. And I do want to say that these are very, I'm being very particular, I guess is the word, with these books. Not only have they taken so much time and effort to produce them, but we want them to be high quality, textbook level books, because I would love for them to be something that's even recommended by fashion programs if they're if they say, hey, this is a book that we recommend for you to get and hone your illustration techniques, or if you're needing to learn more about specific breeds and their design considerations. So these are going to be probably the highest quality books that Left Paw Press has ever produced. And it will be like an encyclopedia set. Volume 5 is going to be the sporting breeds. And just like with all of the others, that is going to have a companion coloring book also. Moving on so that you can see the colors, the covers. I love all of these so much. I think they're so cool. Charina, who's my graphic designer, has done all of the covers, by the way, and she always does such a fantastic job. I'm so happy about working with her, and I'm so blessed to have found Florina to do illustrations. I'm just happy. Okay, so volume 6 is going to be the herding breeds, and like the others, that is going to have the coloring book companion with it, so you can also practice colorization techniques. And then volume 7 will have the working breeds. And so, you know, as you look at the difference between the working breeds versus, let's say, the toy breeds, you can definitely see that there are different design considerations that you need to have with these different types of dogs, because their action levels, their energy levels, and things like that always vary. And that will also have a companion coloring book with it for the working breeds. And then the other book that we're going to introduce with the pet fashion genre is going to be the Pet Fashion Industry Patterns book. We're going to be introducing that this year in the spring through Left Paw Press. And this is another one of those books that it's been taking several years to put together, because it's all of these different patterns and trends that I've been noticing for several years in the pet fashion industry, and I've put them together. And this is something that it's just going to be a really cool book, because not only is it educational on the pet fashion industry, but it has information and statistics in there, if I could talk, about the pet industry. It has photography from some of the most fashionable cities around the world. It has illustrations by Florina. There's a lot of design by Charina in here. So it could be a beautiful table book in and of itself, just on the pet fashion industry, or if someone just likes pets in general. Okay, and so that is slated to come out in the spring. I don't have the exact date right here in front of me of when that's planning. I'm planning on launching that, but definitely in the spring time frame. It's a different book from what you'll see others do. It's going to be in color, so it's not one of those I guess business books. Let's say Good to Great comes to mind, and it's, you know, one of those books that that you read through and it's kind of educational and black and white throughout. This is definitely a different type of piece as a book, and we're making some careful considerations on design and everything else with it. Another book that we're working on and will likely come out probably pretty late in the year, because there's volumes and volumes of information to cull through in order to put this together, and that's the Dog Breeds Fitting Guide. And this will include illustrations that will show all of the sizes, the standard sizes for the different dog breeds. It'll include weight information and a lot of information like that, because it's really tough when you're a designer and you're starting out and you're trying to figure out, or even if you've been in business for a while and you're trying to expand to other breeds, and you're trying to find the information on, okay, I want to design for a pug, but what is the standard size for pugs, and how are they structured differently, and things like that. And so we're putting together the Dog Breeds Fitting Guide. And that would be late in the year 2017 for coming out. And so that's really the overview that we have for the year of 2017 of what's coming out for coloring books, racing books, pet fashion and marketing books. The pet industry patterns book is definitely, it could be marketing, it could be pet industry and pet fashion. And then of course the Pet Business Planning Almanack book. We've got a lot on our plates this year, so it's going to be probably at least 24 books if I'm adding those up correctly. And we're really looking forward to this next year and getting this out there into the world. And like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, if you have any suggestions on coloring books, but let me expand that and say if you have any suggestions on any additional books beyond the coloring books also, feel free to comment on the video and let us know what your opinion is and what you think we should be producing. Obviously, it won't happen this year with the books already on our plate that we have, but certainly it might be something that we could consider for Left Paw Press. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm glad we worked through any technical glitches that we may have had, and that we were able to share this via the desktop, because I think it's so much better to be able to show you the progress and the covers and things like that that we've at least come up with so far. So thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful evening, and I'm Laurren Darr with Left Paw Press, signing out.